Ron Siegel Radio, your home and mortgage connection.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
And hello again. Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. This is the show with no real boundaries as we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media. This is the show that connects the dots of confusion delivered by conflicting media reports. We connect the dots so you know the actions you can take, how your family or business can benefit from current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day. We have a very focused show. We want to chat about items that affect the roof over your head, your bank account, and anything I feel would benefit you. But before we get into our intriguing content today, please join me in welcoming our featured guest and repeat offender on Ron Siegel Radio. Paul Peters is with us, best-selling author. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, Ron. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you with us. And let me remind you, if you ever have any home or finance-related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you. And you can reach out to me directly, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are operators standing by.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting.
Well, I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan, a plan to save you money. I personally work with you. Even if you don't have any needs today, save this number in your phone for future reference. 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And yes, I am celebrating. We are celebrating today. We celebrate life, celebrate every day on Ron Siegel Radio. I'm just looking at the celebrations of the day. And I don't know how you make this list of the National Day calendar for the celebrations, but I'm looking at them. Today's Squirrel Appreciation Day. Does anybody appreciate squirrels? I know that when we've had some fruit trees in our yard, we don't appreciate the squirrels, but just throw this out there, a very natural deterrence around the base of the tree. Put circle it with cumin or cinnamon, either one. They don't like it. So go to Costco, get a big thing of it, liberally spread it around there. They don't like it. But today, National Granola Bar. Do you like granola bars? Yeah, I like that. Looks like a good one, Josh. That looks like peanut butter. What do you think? What's that, Mountain Valley or something that they have at Costco? They're messy, but they're good. I like them. Not good for my diet journey, but I still go there anyway. You can't give up everything. I've still got my water and, drink the more water. If you want to eat something that's not good on your weight loss journey, mix it with a bunch of water, right? So I have that, we were out in the Coachella Valley. If you ever go out to Coachella Valley, you got to stop at Hadley's on the way back. Date shakes, they got a lot of good stuff there, but now in addition, and you'll be able to, you're gonna know my age by this one. You go on a ride for an hour and a half. Yes, I am over 50 as a male. So, you got to stop for the restroom breaks. So Hadley's has a good restroom over there. So spend a little money, enjoy. But I digress. I got a couple of good things there, but if you have a glass of water on either side of some of the things that you're indulging in, might be good for you. Hey, let's take a look at what the markets are doing today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average right now is up 252 points. The NASDAQ is up 33 points. The S&P 500 is up 31. Oil's up 13 cents a barrel. And I don't want to look at the price of gasoline because we're still clearly over $4 a gallon here in the formerly Golden State. And no matter what Gavin says, thanks, Gavin. Ow! Yeah, $4.20 a gallon for gasoline is the average price across the formerly Golden State. One of only 2 states in the country that have gas prices over $4. The other one is the oil-producing state of Hawaii. I mean, no, they don't produce oil in Hawaii. They have to they ship it in from California, most likely, or other places in the world. So they ship it from California. Now, I wonder what's going to happen to Hawaii now that California's all the refineries are leaving us. I know Gavin tells us that we're doing great, but did you see today? Wells Fargo's just said their wealth management division is leaving California, heading to Florida. I wonder why. Maybe that's where the wealthy people are all going, and they're leaving California. Now, are they giving up their second homes in California? No. We still got great weather. We've still got great beaches. And, if you're sitting where I am right now, which obviously you can't be sitting where I am because I'm oversized, but, I can be at the beach in 20 minutes. I can be up at the snow in an hour and a half. I can be in the desert in an hour and a half, or I can be in 4 hours. I can be in wine country. You tell me where else you can sit and get all of that in that short a period of time. Actually, I guess I can go to Temecula and get wine. Not my favorite wines, but that's only about an hour from me. So think about that. Within an hour and a half, I can be the snow, the desert, the wine, or the beach. You tell me where else you get that. But you got to pay $4 a gallon for gasoline to get there. Now, what's going on in the markets? What are we seeing here? Yesterday, if you noticed, the big commentary of the markets, everyone was worried because over the weekend, the president said for national security reasons, whether you agree with him or not, I don't care. But for national security reasons, we need Greenland. And because they want to put the Iron Dome over Greenland, and that's where they're going to use to protect parts of the world from people that aren't our friends. So whether you agree with it or not, that's the president's opinion. And the markets, they say it tanked because of that. Now, if that's true, and the markets were down over 800 points yesterday, and the president said they're not going to use force to take Greenland. That was in his speech this morning in Davos. If you have no life like me, you might have been listening to him drone on and on and on for a while in Davos. But wouldn't you think the market would have recovered that 800 points today? Well, the reason that it didn't is because that's not what drove the market down yesterday. Maybe a little bit on those geopolitical fears, but Japan needing money. Now, why is that important to the United States? Why is that important to the U.S. markets? Well, who's the largest holder of U.S. Treasury debt? Yes, it's Japan. Now, Denmark, they don't like the idea of what the president's thoughts are. So what did they say? Well, they said they're going to stop buying U.S. debt. Okay, maybe we should stop buying Danish coffee cakes. I don't know what they even make there. But the bottom line is their commentary didn't have a whole lot of effect on the markets. The Greenland commentary was a small effect on the markets, as you can see by a 235-point rebound this morning. Japan has the meaningful commentary. That's what it's all about. So think about that concept and what that has to do with the U.S. Now, why do I bring that up? It's because this is a home and finance radio show. Yes, we talk about a lot of other things, and we're going to talk about The Inheritance, a new book coming out on Friday. So we'll chat about that this morning as well. But if you're thinking about buying, selling, refinancing, restructuring debt, well, you're looking at the markets. And I told you the markets always overreact. Down 800 points yesterday, up today. The bond market down yesterday. It's up today. The treasuries were up yesterday. The yield down today. Markets always overreact. You need to know that. You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. Hey, do me a favor and smash the like button or the favorites button or all those kind of subscribe to our channels. It helps us with the algorithms so we can keep bringing you free content on a regular basis. But hey, you're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, why rising foreclosure headlines are not a red flag for today's housing market. We're going to talk about The Inheritance. Yes, it is a new book coming out on Friday, and we're going to talk with the best-selling author this morning. You can reach me anytime. Off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you missed any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Are you a veteran, own a home, and need money? The Siegel Lending Team is here to help veterans refinance and get the money they need. The VA 100 lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value, refinance your mortgages, consolidate credit cards, and lower your payments by an average of $700 a month. And the Siegel Lending Team knows that character means more than a credit score. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Rate subject to change without notice. Licensed by the California Department of Corporations, NMLS 21037, and DRE number 018694452. You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio. Or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Mortgage Minute today being brought to you by rsrlinks.com/mobile app, rsrlinks.com/mobile app, and every day at this time, OBMMI. They provide the most comprehensive, accurate, timely, and interactive analysis of pricing ever conducted in the mortgage industry, calculated from actual locked rates, with consumers across 35% of all mortgage transactions nationwide. They do not tell us points paid, points received, or the APR. They tell us the number you put in your mortgage calculator to determine your principal and interest payment. What did rates do yesterday? It was not a pretty day. I'm really surprised because I hadn't looked at the chart Josh sent me early this morning, and I'm surprised to see anything was on the downside. But 2 out of 5 that we follow here were down. The conventional 30-year fix, 6.097, that was up a little bit. Jumbo 30-year fix, 6.369, that was up. FHA 30-year fix, 5.984, that was down. VA 30-year fixed, 5.755, that was up. And USDA 30-year fixed, 5.976, that was down. And hey, don't forget the best loan on the market. That would be the Home Select, gethomeselect.com for the Wealth Builder loan. Gethomeselect.com, we show you the Wealth Builder loan, how you can be mortgage free in 6 to 10 years just using your existing cash flow. You don't need to make extra payments or anything like that. It's all because how the interest is dealt with. And yes, you get to keep all your liquidity. Now, if you want to know what your principal and interest payments are, you got to get the calculators. We got a whole suite of calculators, rsrlinks.com/calculators. If you want to know our thoughts about the market, just go to our Ron Siegel Radio community, rsrlinks.com/HBOD. Everything I've talked about costs you nothing. And let's see what the markets are doing right now. We've got the S&P 500 is now up 21 points. We've got the 10-year Treasury down 2 basis points, 4.276. And the bond itself on the 30-year mortgage bond, that's up 11 basis points. Bond up, rates down. That is just mathematics. What's driving it? Well, Japan's finance minister, Satsuki Katayama, appealed for calm after a wave of bond selling lifted Japan's long-term government yields to decades-high levels with effects felt across global markets. Katayama pointed to Japan's reduced reliance on debt, rising tax revenues, and lower borrowing needs as evidence that the government's fiscal stance is prudent and sustainable. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent over there in Davos with all the elites addressed the quote-unquote Sell America narrative at a World Economic Forum news conference, noting that foreign investment in U.S. Treasuries is at record levels and that Denmark's reduction did not move the needle. Think about that one. Now, they don't, do you think that's a Greenland commentary? Tomorrow, we're going to get the October and November personal consumption expenditures report. That is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. However, being that it comes out after the CPI number, it doesn't move the markets a whole lot. Forecasts call for a soft monthly reading in November with year-over-year headline and core inflation, both easing to 2.7% from 2.8%. Markets are likely to welcome the data if it comes in as expected. But again, no big deal because the markets have already seen this. That is the Mortgage Minute, brought to you by our friends, rsrlinks.com/mobile app, rsrlinks.com/mobile app. So let's get into our conversation, a new book. And you know that I don't read a whole lot of books. I am a very, very, very poor reader. I mean, I read a lot of stuff to get ready for our broadcast, 3 hours of prep time for every hour of airtime. So I'm reading a lot. So when it comes to books, the name of the game for me is Audible. So I like getting all the information. If you're not reading a book a month, I mean, are you falling behind? I think you need to read more than that, but a new book coming out. So I haven't read this one because it's not out yet. It's called The Inheritance. The author, Paul Peters, is with us. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you. Very excited.
You're out busy writing books now, huh?
Yeah, I've got one that is coming out Friday. I had another workbook that was kind of a complementary to my first book, revised edition called Discovering and Embracing Your Life Purpose. That came out last week. And then I had an Audible come out on Discovering and Embracing Your Life Purpose. So I'm a big proponent of one, reading and listening. That's how we gain knowledge. That's how we gain wisdom, which ultimately leads to success.
Well, now you're gonna enjoy this because you are the author. So I would assume that there's some revenue for authors. So what I end up doing is I get the Audible. Now, what happens when you got a good book in Audible? Well, I'm not going to sit there and take notes. So then I end up going and buying the Kindle version as well. So that way I can find the quotes and things like that I want to take action on. So I end up 2 for the price of 1, I guess, is kind of the world here that I'm in. But let's talk a little bit about The Inheritance. And I've got a few questions that we can talk about. I guess the first thing is give us a high level overview, and then I'll ask my questions here.
Yep. It's interesting. I mentioned to you, what I want to talk about, which is, grounded in the midst of uncertainty. And it's interesting, you being a financial expert, the markets really are dealing with uncertainty, with the latest news. And so it's very interesting. So Jacob Steele is the main character, and he has quite a lot of things happen to him early in life that are outside of his control, that really leave his world rocked and very uncertain. The death of his mom, the suicide of his father, one of the sole survivors of a torpedo bombing on one of the ships during World War II, alcoholism, addiction, all those things left him very uncertain and really not a sense of groundedness. And in that, he found faith, which ultimately, for those who are faith followers or believers, faith is a foundation where you have a sense of stability, no matter what the circumstances around you. So the book is about finding, restoring, transformation, recovery, healing, and then finding your mission and purpose, and then going out and doing that and serving mankind. And ultimately, it's a story about redemption.
I'm not a very religious person, but I do follow my faith. And I'm not getting into that kind of a conversation, but I think there's a big societal void.
Yes.
Because we've gotten away from and respect. I mean, I look at what people wear to church and to temple, and when I was young, we would think that Sunday mornings you go out for breakfast, and being Jewish, I don't go to church, but you'd be in a restaurant and you could tell exactly who came from church and who didn't because they were dressed appropriately, in my opinion, appropriately.
Yeah.
Now it's just as long as you show up, I guess clergy's happy, is just to show up. So I think it brings a little respect to the world too. And maybe I'm missing something, but.
No, I would totally agree. And no matter what the audience's faith element, faith provides a sense of stability, a certainty on what you believe to be true. And the issue that we're struggling right now with the uncertainty is you've got multiple beliefs that are conflicting with one another. And there's a sense, you see it very prevalent in politics. I even saw it in some of the football games we played. They demonize their competitor or the enemy. So they really try to shut down discussion, dialogue, civil conversations. They may differ, but when you demonize and you fearmonger, it creates more uncertainty because people are just simply looking for what to believe and what to truth. And so that's some of the challenge. And the book deals with some of that because he's taught, for example, by President Truman about what led up to World War II and Hitler's domination, and how it's important whatever you believe is true, because otherwise it can be totalitarianism, Hitlerism, fascism. All these are basically ideological control systems to make sure that they're manipulating the people into believing what they want to decide. And so that's the challenge we face.
And this might be a perfect time for a book like this, just because, there is so much uncertainty. And, I look at it and, I know that I think you put in here that, and I always get confused by these things, but I think it's nonfiction is what we call it.
It's nonfiction. No, I'm sorry. This is my first fiction. My other books have been nonfiction.
Okay. So this is your fiction book. So, you look at it and you say, okay, so many things that you read are all they tend to mirror what's going on in society, right? I mean, we're creating our own uncertainty, aren't we? I mean, you can look and say, whether you like it or not, the president is the president, and it doesn't matter. I look at it and say, something. If I'm in an airplane, I want the pilot to succeed. I don't care whether I don't know whether I like him or don't like him or her, but I want him to be successful. Right? That there's the uncertainty is kind of crazy. I got so many questions for you about. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, it's interesting when people argue against reality, i.e., the president is the president. Then you delve into what I would call insanity, or just a non-rationalism. And so, we had this discussion with the Supreme Court. What is a boy? What is a girl? That is to me, a ludicrous argument. It's very obvious. But when we get into that question, that your opinion is true, well, then we've lost the sense of truth, the sense of what's moral, what's right. I know there's people that are going to differ, but there's factual evidence on certain things that are true. And I think that's the challenge. We've accepted everybody's opinion and say, oh, that's true because that's what you think. But it's not validated. And I think that's dangerous for society if we're going to basically accept all truths, which of course they're not. So.
Yeah, that makes, I guess I could believe that the sun comes up in the west if I wanted to, but, try and prove it. And you look at it and you say, okay, you got a Supreme Court justice who doesn't know the difference between a boy and a girl. Seems to me that, I'm not very good in science, but, I can look down and I can tell. It doesn't, this isn't rocket science here. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, we're going to dig into the book with author Paul Peters. We're going to talk about why rising foreclosure headlines are not a red flag for today's housing market and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you missed any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Confused about the home buying process? Or curious how much you really know about buying a home? Take the First Home IQ quiz to test your understanding of buying a home. Created by the nonprofit First Home IQ, this 5-minute quiz will give you a score, what you missed, and why. Take the quiz in 5 minutes at rsrlinks.com/FHIQ and find out what you need to know about buying your first home. That's rsrlinks.com/FHIQ.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Why rising foreclosure headlines are not a red flag for today's housing market. If you've seen headlines saying foreclosure activity has been climbing for 10 straight months, it's easy to assume that's a sign of trouble for the housing market. But when you look at the full picture, a few simple truths become clear. Today's foreclosure numbers are in line with what's considered normal. Home equity is keeping most homeowners in a strong financial position. None of the data points to a big wave of distressed sales that'll crash the market. Foreclosure filings are up 32%, but that doesn't mean the market's in trouble. If you peel the layers all the way back, what everyone is actually worried about is that we're headed for a repeat of what happened in 2008. Back then, riskier lending practices and an oversupply of homes for sale brought home prices down and led to significant increases in foreclosures. A lot of people felt the impact, but this isn't the same situation. Yes, Adam data shows foreclosure filings are up 32% year over year, and that increase is going to sound dramatic. But context matters, and it doesn't mean we're headed for another crash. And the numbers prove it. Take a look at the chart that Josh just put up for us on RonSiegelRadio.tv, any of our socials, or the ABC News and Talk AM 1490, FM 98.1 video feed, showing a chart of foreclosure activity. Now, if you look at the red lines in the chart, those are all over 1 million. We're in the blue section, not anywhere close to those red lines. The Adam data shows foreclosure filings up 32% year over year. And if you look at where we were during the last crash, that's the red in the graph. Well, we're now securely in the blue. And you can see the foreclosure is different when you look at the 4 years of the housing crash, which is now on the screen, versus the last 4 years. We're just fractions of where we were. Even with the uptick lately, we're nowhere near crash levels, far from it. This is not a return to crisis levels. What it is a return to normal. The graph we're going to show next shows foreclosure filings going all the way back to the year early 2005, the lead up to and the aftermath of the crash is there in red. Those are the years when foreclosure filings went above the 1 million mark each year. Now look at the right side and scan back to 2017 to 2019 range, the last truly normal years for housing. You'll see we're actually just starting to fall back in line with what's typical for the market, even with the increase lately. So you're saying we're still below where we were in 2017 to 19. Rob Barber, CEO of Adam, explains it well. Quote, foreclosure activity increased in 2025, reflecting a continued normalization of the housing market following several years of historically low levels. While filings, starts, and repossessions all rose compared to 2024, foreclosure activity remains well below pre-pandemic norms and a fraction of what we saw during the last housing crisis. Today's uptick is being driven more by market recalibration than widespread homeownership distress, with strong equity positions and more disciplined lending continuing to limit risk, unquote. The word, quote unquote, normalization in that quote is extra important. While economic and financial pressures are putting a strain on some homeowners, this isn't a flood of distressed homes. No matter what the headlines may have you believe, this isn't a large-scale crisis. Today's increases isn't a sign of trouble, it's a return to normal. Why isn't this a repeat of 2008? Even though the last housing crash still shapes how a lot of people interpret today's news, the reality is this is a different market. Lending standards are stronger, borrowers are more qualified, and homeowners have far more equity. And that equity piece is especially important. Over the last 5 years, home prices have risen significantly. For many people, their house is worth far more than they paid for it. That means most homeowners have a strong financial cushion to fall back on if needed. Basically, if someone faces hardship today, they often have the option to sell and maybe even walk away with money in their pocket instead of going through foreclosure. That's a major contrast to 2008, when many homeowners owed more than their home was worth. Bottom line, foreclosure activity may be rising, but it's still well within a normal range and nowhere near the danger zones of the past. But the headlines are doing more to terrify than to clarify, and that's exactly why having a trusted real estate expert you can call on is so important. And that's why having a consumer advocate is imperative. That's what we do. When you hear something in the news or see something on social about housing that worries you, please reach out so you have the context to understand what's really happening and how it impacts you, if at all. That's the real-time real estate segment brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. And that really ties in to the theme of today's show, being grounded in the midst of uncertainty. The media wants us to. Why does the media do this stuff? Well, okay, I'm in the media, so I can tell you the inside scoop. It sells. And what is, when you listen to the media, now we do an educational show. We've never made money from the broadcasts. We do it to help educate. But when you look at ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, CNN, MSNB, Hee-Haw, or whatever that's called nowadays, do you think the content is meaningful to them? No. For the most part, content is just a means to get you to listen to a commercial. So if you are listening to CNN or Fox, they're going to echo whatever you think. So you stay tuned to get to the commercial, and they don't give you any legitimacy. They create more uncertainty. So we're talking about uncertainty today. The name of the book that we're discussing is The Inheritance, Multi-Generational Story. We've got the person that knows the most about the book because he wrote it. Paul Peters is with us. So, Paul, I'm looking at this, and I know that Jacob is our star here.
Yes.
Starts at rock bottom, war, trauma, addiction, survivor's guilt. What's the turning point that pulled him back from the brink? And was there a specific moment or person that made the difference there?
Yeah, it really was. I won't give you too much, but it was a woman that he met when he was in the hospital, that she was kind of a grounding person for him. Secondly, it was the what happened to him after he attempted suicide. It was a completely miraculous event that really strengthened his sense of faith and who he was. And in that situation, he found what his calling was, because he pretty much gave up all hope, wanted to commit suicide. And in the midst of that struggle, he found what his purpose and his plan for his life was. And then him and the woman that he ended up marrying, they pursued that purpose diligently, that ultimately impacted the whole world, left a legacy. And ultimately he did it because he was grounded, not only necessarily in his faith, you'd mentioned, because the media puts out a message because they're trying to get the audience to buy something. So they already have an ulterior motive, and it's not necessarily truth. And can I read a quick quote for you from Marcus Aurelius?
Absolutely.
Yep. It says, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's a quote the media can just throw out the window. I mean, they're going to express whatever their viewpoint is. It's interesting. I'm more in the conservative line, so I typically will listen to conservative radio because I think it's unbiased, or TV. You know, they all have a bias because they're trying to communicate a message, and that's where it gets very confusing for people. Where does truth lie? People are going to reinforce what they believe, but it's not necessarily based on truth. And I think that's the challenge we have today.
You know, it is a big challenge. I talk to folks all the time. Where do we get our information? And I say you have to listen to get a lot of information. And generally, a lot of the things that I bring to our audience is from paid resources, right? Fox News gets paid by the commercials, so they don't care what they're telling you as long as you get you to listen. If I want to get real news, you know, I have like 4 different sources that I'm listening to all the time, and I pay them. So I'm hoping, you know, if they don't deliver, you know, facts to me, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Correct.
Right. It's a real direct one-to-one that says, you know, something, you don't give me, if you don't provide what I'm looking for, not just reinforcing my own opinion. I go to the places where they're not going to tell me what I want to hear. They're going to tell me what the truth is. And, you know, a lot of people have to go out all the time now and verify everything. So you mentioned in the book that Jacob creates an invention that changes global health access forever. That's massive.
Yes.
Without giving away too much, what drove him to channel his pain into something that would help millions of people? How did his suffering become his purpose?
He recognized that he was given a second chance of life. And he also recognized that he had to let go of the past pain and the shame and the guilt. and recognized that going forward was the only hope that he had. And he had a greater calling beyond himself, and that was to take this invention and share it with the world, which is why he ultimately met Trump. I mean, not Trump, but Truman. He ultimately helped in regards to the Marshall Plan, which was the rebuilding of Europe. And he used what his purpose was for the betterment of man. And I think that was what set the difference for him in regards to leaving that legacy, which ultimately is his inheritance, which was multiple billions of dollars to his great grandkids.
You know, it's a fascinating story when you think about it, how you go from thinking that, and I've never tried this, but I've heard, those folks that have tried suicide, that you're going from feeling the world's a better place without you,
yes,
to going to a point that, you've got a tremendous purpose. So we're going to pick up on that when we come back. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. Reach us anytime. Off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. If you miss any part of our broadcast, YouTube, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel numeral 1 on YouTube. And make sure that you hit the like button, the subscribe button, all those good things, and make comments on there for us so we know that you're listening to us. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Do you know a homeowner experiencing divorce? Do you know a real estate reference and the divorce decree could cost tens of thousands of dollars? A certified divorce mortgage planning and real estate report could save you thousands of dollars, and it's free from your local certified divorce lending professional. Reach out to Ron today. RonIsMyLender.com. Again, RonIsMyLender.com. Licensed under NMLS 217037, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Borrow Smart segment today being brought to you by GetHomeSelect.com. GetHomeSelect.com, the absolute best loan on the market. It's the wealth builder loan. Some people call it the all-in-one loan. But if you want to have your house paid off in 6 to 10 years, no extra payments, but you're using your cash flow to benefit you, you're reducing your interest expense, but you're keeping your liquidity. And I always say that, you get into a house however you can, using a mortgage or whatever's needed to get into that property. But as quickly as you can transition to the wealth builder loan, you're going to be far better off, because one of the downsides of a mortgage is a lack of liquidity. You have to make a payment every month. And the more payments you make, if there is some catastrophe in your life, well, the banks don't care. If you don't make the payments, they're going to take the property. With the wealth builder loan, you're building up equity, you're building up liquidity over time. So if you do have a problem, you get in a car accident, temporary setback, you don't have to worry that you're going to lose your property because you've got liquidity. The wealth builder loan gets that for you. You can go and get more information on it. GetHomeSelect.com. GetHomeSelect.com. That is the Borrow Smart segment. Let's continue our conversation. Paul Peters is the author of The Inheritance. And I guess I'm kind of putting my own words here, Paul, and I guess I'm not going too far. Suicide to ultra success. So what was the catalyst? I mean, I think you said you're in a hospital or institutionalized following the suicide attempt, and
Yes.
Develops a major invention, and then becomes a billionaire. How do you go from the pit of life to the pinnacle of life?
Well, one, he found hope in a time where there was hopelessness. He was encouraged by the people around him, Maggie, who ultimately became his wife. His stepmother encouraged him. So he basically began to take his eyes off his fears, worries, shame, guilt, and put it on his faith and his family and his friends. And he was driven in a sense of, and maybe think about, and many of your audiences probably have seen the It's a Wonderful Life, which is almost like Back to the Future. You get to see two timelines, one of his own existence, and then ultimately he wants to commit suicide and actually attempts it. But then he gets to see his life apart from actually doing what he did. And none of us get that opportunity, but in some respects, if we did, and we were able to see the film of what the impact we've made on other people with what we've done and the choices we make. And really, Jacob gets that opportunity to kind of see the vision of the future. And he basically walks in that direction, knowing it's about serving other people and making a difference with the gift that's been given to him. And we all have that opportunity. And I think he took the hopelessness, had hope, had friends, family, and faith to guide him. And ultimately, he followed the formula of success. You talk from a financial standpoint. There is a formula that we can follow to be rich and abundant, but there's also a formula in life. And if we follow those principles in regards to doing the right thing, much like Marcus Aurelius quote, if we do the right things and we're kind to people, we will be successful. And I think he just followed his dream and he recognized the driving passion. He was going to make a difference in using what God gave him, that gift, to serve other people, and ultimately he impacted millions of people. And that's ultimately, we have that same ability.
It's amazing how if you just look for that gift, it's there. You just have to look for it and find it. But I guess tying into the title of the book, The Treasure Hunt for the Great-Grandchildren, that's also fascinating. What made Jacob decide that his descendants needed to earn their inheritance through service rather than just get the wealth? And what's the message there about money versus values?
I'll give you two examples. I may have shared this with you before. The history lineage of Vanderbilt versus Rockefeller. Many of the inheritance, the kids that inherited are no longer really wealthy. The Vanderbilt based on the hospital, the different things. Rockefellers are continued because they turned what they learned serving other people. And that's what Rockefeller made stress. So Jacob basically recognized, I have one life to live. I've got to prepare my great-grandkids for what the generation is going to be. So we give them these tests to help them discover their purpose and to help them understand it is all about serving other people in your giftedness that makes a successful life. And they took those tests and they were very successful. And ultimately, they got the inheritance because they recognized what is really the most important in life. It's not making money. It's using money to benefit other people. And that's the true story of the book.
And it's amazing how people end up missing that part. I've seen so many times, especially when you have businesses transfer from generation to generation.
Yes.
How, you can have a very, very, very successful business and it only lasts one or two generations beyond the ownership or the founders, because they look at this as a right and look at me and the egos, and they forget about the part of, something you got to earn it. You got to, give to others and what's that? What is it? Zig Ziglar? If you can make your own wealth, if you help enough people find their wealth or something along those lines.
Yes.
So, a lot of early generations who are the wealth builders forget that part of teaching their own. They're so busy dealing with that business, they forget about their own family.
Yes.
It's kind of a crazy part of that. So the book comes out on Friday.
Yes.
I'm assuming that it's gonna, I guess I can't say it's going to be at all your favorite bookstores, because I don't even know if there are bookstores anymore. Other than, is Amazon the only bookstore that's left?
No, there's Books A Million. There's, I believe, Barnes and Nobles, and I believe Borders, and they will be in the bookstores as well. So,
okay. And do you have an online site that you can get it at as well?
Correct. It'll be listed on much like my other books at Paul Peters at online. Hold on.
PaulPeters.online.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. I'm not that smart.
I'll make sure I get it. get it to you, but I
Yeah,
believe
I'm not
that's
that
it.
swift. Josh has a scroll along the bottom of the screen, and I can almost
There you go.
read it. PaulPeters.online is where you can get the book.
Yeah.
And Friday it'll be on Amazon, and you can get that. Now you've got other books already on Amazon, right?
Correct. Yes.
What's your okay? Give us a plug. Give us
I've got the Discovering and Embracing Your Life Purpose, and then also that came out last year, and then the Discovering and Embracing Your Life Purpose workbook came out last week. I have Discovering and Embracing Your Life Purpose Audible. That's coming out this week, and then of course I co-wrote, which you can find if you just go into Amazon, Success Redefined with Jack Canfield.
Yeah, you're a busy man.
Yes.
And on top of that, you have a business that you run.
I have a business. I have a mentoring center for at-risk kids. I have a nonprofit foundation. So yeah, I stay busy.
I don't know how you have time to do all the writing and things that you do with does it, how long? Just give me a little background, because I've never written a book, but
Yeah.
well, I've got some titles, but how long does it take you to write a book like this?
This one actually took me about 10 months, but I have written the previous ones in about 3 months. I had to kind of lock myself away at the beach and kind of focus. So Jack Canfield gave me some of the best advice, which he says, time block if you want to write. You have to block time to do that and stay very disciplined to get that book finished.
I'm a big fan of Bill O'Reilly.
Yes.
And I've listened to him talk about on some of his books that he has to set aside time, the time blocking like you're talking about. And he's also got I think it's 10,000 words a day that he has to write.
Wow.
In order to get his books done, because he's coming out with one every year practically. So, I guess you have to have a real firm schedule in order to do something like that. So do you have another one on the drawing board?
Yes, actually, I've got one I'm finishing up, should come out second quarter, which is called The DNA of Purpose. I've got one that I'm doing with Jack Canfield, comes out this summer, called The Heart of Success. And then I'll be working on another one called The Power of Belief, and then Mastering Your Emotions by Mastering Your Life. So,
holy cow!
Yeah,
so you've got them all up on the drawing board and ready to continue teaching us.
Yes,
awesome, love it. Make sure you go out and check out the book. Again, it's called The Inheritance. Multi-generational story. So take a look at that. Oh, wow, we've even got a picture of the book cover and everything. So we've got that right there on the screen. If you're watching us, The Inheritance by Paul Peters comes out Friday at your favorite locations, or in your living room. If you pull out your phone and go to Amazon, you can even get it there. And as always, we ask, set that first radio preset button to come back here and join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Big thanks to Josh and Sean for engineering us today. And of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, make a lot of money so you can help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.